verses 9 through 11. St. John 12, verses 9 through 11. Your device, I say Bibles, folks have their devices. St. John 12, verses 9 through 11. It says, much people of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him, many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus. I have the take from the Living Bible. It goes as this: when the ordinary people of Jerusalem heard of his arrival, they flocked to see him, and also to see Lazarus, the man who had come back to life again. Then the chief priest decided to kill Lazarus too, for it was because of him that many of the Jewish leaders had deserted and believed in Jesus as their Messiah. For a few short minutes, I'd like to share from the subject, the enemy hates revival.
All right.
The enemy hates revival. So I want to define revival before I go into the message. Revival has some simple English definitions. One definition is an improvement in the condition or strength of something. The second is an instance of something becoming popular, active, or important again. Another definition is restoration of force, validity, or effect. The meaning of revival in the Bible, the word revival combines two Latin words, vivo, meaning to live, and re, meaning again. It's like a rebirth or a reawakening, an invigorating experience where the Holy Spirit moves freely among believers, setting their hearts on fire for the Lord. For a few short minutes again, my subject is the enemy hates revival. Our text speaks of the plot by the Jewish leaders to kill Lazarus. They wanted him twice dead. Look at somebody and tell them, twice dead.
Twice dead.
One would think that intentions like this would never be aimed at a man that others had already sent funeral flowers to. This is the same man that a good amount of people could have given expressions over his life. 3 minutes, please. And now they want to kill him. There could have even been a program written up for Lazarus' funeral service that even spoke of Lazarus having a special friend. A good amount of people had done some slow walking, some slow singing, and some flower bringing over Lazarus' body. Here was a man that had felt the icy grip of death itself until a man named Jesus showed up late to his funeral service and subsequent burial. And this same Jesus was bold enough to tell Lazarus to come forth from the grave. Here was a man that should have been stinking. Here was a man that should have been given up. It was the teaching in that day that the soul of an individual lingered near the deceased body for 3 days. And after the third day, all hope was gone for their soul to return into that body. So Jesus showed up fashionably late for Lazarus' service after Lazarus had been dead 4 days. Lazarus was past hope, so it had to be incredible for Jesus to say, "Show me where you laid him." They told him by now he stinketh. That sheer fact that Jesus is told in St. John 11, verse 4, when Jesus heard, he said, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby." Those Rhema words let us know that Jesus wasn't late because of his having an inferior Apple Watch. But Jesus was fashionably late to share a totally God moment with the masses. Jesus was late that for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. St. John 11, verses 14 and 15 reads as follows. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And, that's enough, but this one is a kicker. And I am glad for your sake that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Now, this is the same Lazarus that Jesus loved and wept over. Jesus here is saying that Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sake. Now, this was Jesus, the all-powerful Lord of all, who said this. So please don't go to any black funeral in the near future and tell Chico, Poochie, and Chubby that you're glad that loved one is gone. Jesus said, though, these bold words with tremendous power. Then Jesus spoke these words in St. John 11, verses 23 through 25. He said, Jesus said unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth on me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Jesus then powerfully called Lazarus from the grave by saying, Lazarus, come forth. Jesus then said, in the presence of the once dead Lazarus, who's still bound in grave clothes, to loose him and let him go. How in the world couldn't you be happy to see someone have their life restored? But the religious leaders in our text wanted the people to keep believing in their dead works. But the people took one look at Lazarus and then believed on Jesus. The religious leaders had plans to not only put Jesus to death, but here they are planning to make Lazarus dead again. Tell somebody, dead again. Dead again. Dead again. Again, people looked at Lazarus and believed on Jesus. Now let me talk to each one of you. Haven't you wondered why some have been staring at you like they've seen a ghost? It's because they've seen you left for dead before, and they saw how Jesus brought you back to life. Some of us here are revival starters. The enemy has such an assignment on some of our lives because one look at us starts a revival. They look and they see you, but they believe in Jesus. Some of us are walking, talking, and breathing examples of the grace of God. Some of us have had people writing our obituaries already, but God. Say, but God. The enemy hates revival. So he's going to especially hate all of you who are revival starters. The enemy wants us to stay dead because when people are able to see our lives restored to their rightful place, it's hard to not believe in Jesus. Jesus still is a habit breaker. I warned you that the enemy hates revival, so please expect the attacks and know that they're coming. If you've ever been left for dead before, then let me hear you. Have any of you all ever been left for dead? You've never been left for dead in a horrible pit or in the miry clay. You've never been in a tough spot. You've never been in a mess. Some of us are even in messes right now as we speak. Because if you've ever been left for dead, I'm telling you that you still probably are a revival starter, or you should be a revival starter on this morning. Just think of how good God has been to you, and then tell it everywhere that you go. Those who overcame in the last days, according to the book of Revelations, did so by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. God is a restorer like no other. Some of us have had our hopes restored after having seen things in our life sink to tragic levels. Others have already buried your hopes, buried your dreams, buried your goals, and even buried your worth in this world. God nevertheless brought you back from your sunken place to give you some semblance of another chance. Why would anyone put a hit on someone who God had given another chance. The enemy and others in this thing called religion, they see your personal story as a threat. A glance at you has caused some to believe in Jesus, even at times when you have less than others. They have at times more money. They have at times more degrees. They have more status, and they have more stuff than you ever have. But people look on them and they don't see Jesus, while others look at little old you, and then they have believed on Jesus. So many say that it would be that they want to be used by God, but are you willing to sacrifice everything to be used as a shining example of God's grace? Whoever God greatly used in the whole of the scriptures, they will also most times greatly oppose. The enemy will oppose all that have made the decisions to be a conduit and even a shining example of God's restorative power. Look at someone close to you and tell them that God still restores. God still restores. Then look at someone else and tell them that God will restore. God can bring you back from the dead. God can deliver you out of that stink that you have had attached to your name. God can break the chains that have held you previously in a death grip for all to see. Your insignificant circumstances and your post-death stories have had others to see Jesus. Some deliverances in our life have to be what I would call have to be a God resurrection. Have any of you all had experienced this had to be God resurrection? Let me hear you if you have. You didn't have the money, and it still happened. The doctors have thrown up their hands, and you're still here. They took your this and they took your that and took your this and took your that, and God still gave it back to you. Or you messed it up on your own. We make our own messes sometimes, but God still decided to bless your life. I'm telling you that when some deliverances are strictly from God, why would your resurrection cause the enemy to put an assignment on your life? You've already been written off. You've already been left for dead. People have already written your obituary while you're on this side of the grave. But your resurrection changes the atmosphere. Your resurrection has the ability to stir up the faith of others. Your resurrection has caused others to take a look at you, and then they believe on Jesus. You are a problem for the enemy's kingdom. The enemy doesn't desire to see you as a belief starter. The enemy doesn't desire to see you walk as a revival starter. Maybe that's why the enemy desires to make some of us twice dead. The enemy is not satisfied that you've already been in death's awful grip more than one time. But if you're causing people to hope and believe again, then the enemy wants you dead again. True resurrection catches eyes. Tell somebody, true resurrection catches eyes. People who once saw you dead now take one glance at your resurrection, and then they start believing on Jesus. They ask themselves, isn't this the man? Or isn't this the woman that I saw left for dead? Our God can restore life, and our God can restore hope to any one of us. God is telling me to tell you that no matter how late things seem to be in your life, it's never too late for God to bless your life. I'm talking to you that some had already ordered a toe tag for you. I'm talking to some of you where people had already ordered flowers for your hopes and sent condolence cards to you in advance for your hopes and dreams. Look at someone and tell them, I still believe.
I still believe.
God still powerfully asks, show me where you laid them. God still powerfully asks, show me where you laid her. God has the ability to look past the stink of our lives, to use our lives as a witnessing tool for the kingdom. People have seen you dead, laid out dead for the count. People have seen your life given up and it said it's a wrap. Then God restores you. That's why you become a target of both the enemy and even dead religious folks. Your deliverance has the ability to stir up the masses. That's not because of your own goodness, but it's because of God's grace and God's favor. But that he's powerfully, both of them have powerfully attached themselves to the person called you. Do you still want to be used by God? Do you still want to be a revival starter? Are you willing to be an enemy target? Lazarus' revival cost him everything. This man was not only dead once, but now people are plotting to dead him again. If your life causes revival to break out amongst others, then the enemy wants you removed from the scene. Yes, the enemy in dead religion decides they want to see you dead again. The enemy always seeks to stop any revival or any belief in any one of, or belief stirring in any one of us. Thus explains the plot on your life. People who saw your hopes and dreams dead on a revival now see you smiling. They now see you enjoying life. That sparks revival and belief in others. God is so powerful that he can use our low moments and our pitiful experiences to bless the lives of others. When people see you live and in living color, people know that the resurrection of your life had to be a God thing. Then the revival starts. The enemy hates the stirring of faith of others. That your post-graveyard story is causing a commotion that the enemy wants to stop. My brothers and my sisters in Christ, your life is never too far gone that God can't use your story. Lord, please allow Temple Love to be revival starters. Please allow Temple Love to be belief stirrers like never before. Let all the people that have already written us off be influenced by the lift that God's about to bring to our church. Saints, it's time for us to put our hard hats on, because our rise will cause some to believe, and it'll also cause some to launch attacks and plots. The religious leaders of that day couldn't get over their personal pride long enough for revival to break out. Let's not allow our own pride to hinder our own revival. Lazarus had to go low for others to believe. How long will you go? How low will you go to be used by God? It's my prayer and that our pain, our suffering, and our stink can be used by God to spark revival. Now I want you to consider that nowhere in this text does it say that Lazarus didn't still have decay on him. Nowhere in this text does it say that Lazarus' breath was all fresh. Nowhere in this text does it say that Lazarus, his hair was combed. Look at somebody and say, please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet. People see what God has brought you from, and now they believe on Jesus. Saints of God, the enemy wants to fight you in revival. Your story is making people believe. Your story, people are seeing. They know all your mess. They know all your faults. They know all your falls. They know every time you missed it. Counted them up one by one. But God used this man that had been dead, that people had been at his graveside, that people had already had the butterflies, and somebody had a horse-driven carriage right around him. And God used that very person to spark revival. And the religious leaders of that day, they wanted him dead, they wanted him gone, because he made people believe. And that's why some of you are going to get attacked, because you're making people believe. You don't have a DD, you don't have a Master's of Divinity, you didn't go to Harvard, you didn't go to Yale, but people know the hell that you've been through, and they look at you, and they believe on Jesus. I don't know about you, some of us have been given up for dead, some of us been left for dead, but God can use you, even though you've been left for dead. Our breath may not be the freshest, we may not smell the best, we may not look the best. I feel Celie again up in here, and Celie said I may be black, I may be ugly, my breath may not be the freshest, my smell may not be the nicest, but God found a way to use me. They didn't only want to kill Jesus because people believed on Jesus, but they wanted to kill Lazarus because he was a walking, talking, living example of the grace of God. While some are counting your blessings, they're counting all your detriments. They're naming them one by one. But even though you've been to the graveyard and back, God used Lazarus as a powder keg to set off revival. My life is a shining example. It may not be one to be copied, but God can bring revival from my life. It's the low depths that I've been to that's making people believe on God. I'm telling you, what your detriments are, what you sit in the mirror and look at every day, what you're mad at yourself for having that detriment, God can use that very thing to make people believe on Jesus. Didn't he say in his word that his strength is made perfect in weakness? I'm talking to some people with some post-graveyard experiences. It may not be pretty, but some of them ain't been to hell and back. But it takes those who've been to hell and back to spark revival. All of those religious leaders, none of them spark revival. But here the folk that been to hell and back, and revival breaks out. Is anybody proud of being to hell and back and wearing the t-shirt that God brought you? I'm telling you that God can use your time in the horrible pit. God can use your time in the miry clay. God can use your time when your name's on the highway to make others believe. When God walks in the door, opens the door shut, and God restores your life. I'm telling you that people will believe. They had to see them take your car. They had to see them take your house. They had to see some of them see your man take it. They had to see you suffer a tough death. But God is walked in this building on this morning and told you, despite your graveyard experiences, that your graveyard experiences are going to show life to others. You gotta prove out that there's life after death. And the only way you do it is you gotta go by the cemetery. Here's a former cemetery man telling y'all gotta go by the cemetery. You gotta go by the stuff that's messed up in your life. You gotta go by the horrible fires that you cause for your own self. And it's in that very place. Sometimes God had to allow your mess to be seen by others, because God knew that he was going to use what was attacked by the enemy to influence other people. I know I'm preaching better than y'all are shouting, but saints of God, I'm telling you on this morning that I've been left for dead before, and that started a party. They already had a repast. They were eating chicken. They were eating spaghetti. They had that one little piece of pound cake. But God, I'm telling you, I'm talking about one of these church repasts where they give you about this much of spaghetti and they give you a one little piece of chicken and about 4 green beans. I'm telling you, they doing it on a budget, but they did it with money, with mine. And I'm telling you, they left me for dead. But I'm telling you on this morning, that God walked up in here, tapped me on the shoulder, and say that your attacks are because people look on you and you cause revival. They witness your murder. They witness your killing. They witness your name being dragged. They witness you being held back in the 6th grade. But saints of God walked up in here and he's changing the scene. And people look at you and they believe on God. Brother Young, you told me about your history before you met Jesus. Don't you know when people look at you and they see you now and they can't believe it? At my 10th class reunion, they named me most changed male. Now I graduated from high school in the 12th grade at a buck 135. So here I am 10 years later at 235. I say that they talking about them 100 pounds, but they were talking about we buried this boy, and God brought him back, least likely to be voted a preacher. Saints of God, I know y'all were most likely to succeed at your high school, but I was the least likely to become a preacher. And here God is, and take me to the world. I'm telling you and prophesying that God's about to take me to the world, and I'm the least likely because God wants to use my example. God wants a boy that had his fingerprint to it, and God is going to show you that I got him. Show me where you laid him. Show me where you buried him. God is ready to bless you. And God wants some folks that knew your history on this morning and wrote you off too. Saints of God. Ain't it something when you go to the class reunion and you had the prettiest girl in the class that everybody wants to see, and she come back looking like a mild gorgon, and God made you the ugly duckling, the talk of the town. Tell somebody, God can change that thing. God can make our ugly look pretty. God can even change your breath. Saints of God, I'm telling you on this morning that God's took off the God's took off the stink. God took off everything that you've been through in your life. And now people look at you and they believe on Jesus. He died until the sun refused to shine. He died until the earth rocked him. He died until the earth shook and shivered. He died until the Roman centurion said, surely this is the Son of God. They hung him high, they stretched him wide. He bowed his head, and then he died. He died until the bell of the temple was ringing twain from the top to the bottom. Saints of God, he died for you to be a witness of his power. He died to show you his grace. And now people look at you and believe on Jesus. Go tell 5 people. They looked at you. Every time I look at you, I believe on Jesus. Now go tell them.